Yep. So, welcome to Christian Hangout number 33. We have two LUE-YEEs with us tonight. And we also have a newcomer named Thomas. Hello, Thomas.
Hey, how are you?
So, Thomas, this is your first time. Would you like to introduce yourself and let us know what your background is with Christianity?
Yeah, sure. So, I've been Christian all my life, though I come from a fairly secular background. So it's only recently that I've really been looking to study it more. I was brought up as an Anglican, and I've been to various types of Anglican high or Anglo-Catholic ones and the lower ones. And at the moment, I'm pretty disenfranchised with the whole Anglican Church. It's just so there's a lot of infiltration, I guess we could say, and I mean, like the last Anglican service I went to, there was a gay preacher telling us about some kind of progressive thing. I don't fully remember what he said, but all I remember was that it was pretty infuriating. So at the moment, I just kind of consider myself Christian. I've looked into other denominations, but I haven't officially gone any other way.
So what other denominations have you looked into?
I've looked into Catholicism and Orthodoxy. That's about it, really. But only in the terms, and with the Catholics, it's only been, I guess, the modern Vatican II types. I've never been to a Latin Mass. Yeah, so I wouldn't know how that compares.
Yeah.
The Vatican II services seem quite similar to an Anglo-Catholic one.
I'm sure that if Lumen were here, he'd be telling you to go to the Latin Mass.
I know, LUE-YEE, you're an Anglican. Is there anything you can say to save me from abandoning Anglicanism altogether?
Well, what do you think are what other choices are the most attractive to you, and why?
I'm sorry. What was that?
What other possibilities do you find most attractive, and why?
Well, I suppose I am, I guess, most attracted to, like, with the thing about why I've looked at Catholicism and Orthodoxy, I guess, is just the aesthetics of it and the tradition surrounding it, which perhaps sounds a little unprincipled because I haven't looked at, the theology so much.
Well, it's more honest to name those than theology, if that's what's really going on. I think some people use theological excuses to justify their aesthetic leanings. So, yeah, I mean, well, so what do you like aesthetically about those two?
Oh, just, I guess, the art and the traditional music associated with it is what stands out the most for me, for sure. I mean, I really know all the ins and outs of the Catholic Church. I've heard many people, denounce the Pope as being quite liberal. I don't know how true or not that really is. Yeah. Sorry, I kind of lost my train of thought there.
I've heard some people say that the Pope is more conservative than he gets credit for, but just that mostly the way the media reports it makes him appear more liberal.
He's still awful.
I don't know. Well, yeah, definitely could be a lot better.
Yeah, the thing with the Pope is most of the people I've heard complaining about him have been non-Catholic. So, but the fact that a lot of liberal media types seem to like him, that's a bit off-putting, but they could just be completely, misinterpreting everything.
I guess this current Bishop of Rome is more of a problem for ultramontanists than for other kinds of papists. If you're not an ultramontanist and you don't think that the Bishop of Rome is, you think he's infallible, but you don't when he says things ex cathedra, but you think a lot of other stuff doesn't matter all that much, even if it affects the church and its holiness. Then I think you might not be very. I mean, you'll find it annoying, but it's not going to be an existential crisis.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Hey, LUE-YEE, I have a question for you, because I'm assuming that you are far more knowledgeable in Anglicanism than
Not
I
sure
am.
that's a safe assumption, but
What is your whole take on the excuse me, on the founding of the church with Henry VIII and all that? 'Cause my assumption was always that it was just a petty, power grab on his part.
I don't think the church was founded by Henry VIII in the first place. I mean, the church was founded by Jesus Christ. Well, that's the
Okay,
first
well,
answer.
okay.
But I'd say it's actually that itself is a very view of the history of this church. It would be as if so you know what the units are?
You mean the Eastern Rite Catholic?
Right. So okay, it would be as if some unit church uh, decided that actually popery was the wrong thing and cast that off. You would not say that that church had not existed before it had embraced popery.
Okay. So then,
So yeah, I think it's a very popish biased view of the history of the Church of England to say that the Church of England didn't exist before Henry VIII. Now, it wasn't, politically independent of papal power before Henry VIII, but it's a very narrow view of the history of the Church of England, and indeed of the entire Catholic Church, to say that the Church of England didn't exist before Henry VIII.
right.
I know there was actually, I think on the Godcast, they discussed this subject recently about whether the Anglican Church was just founded for the sake of a divorce, and they actually, I wish I could remember the entire segment and what they discussed, but they actually said that that's a misconception about that Henry VIII founded it. I mean, it was on a very recent episode that they discussed that. So if you're interested in that topic, maybe you could seek that out. Do you know the Godcast?
Yeah. I've listened to them
Yeah.
a few times.
Yeah. So I can't tell you off the top of my head what episode it was, but I think it might have been either this last one or the one before that, where they took an email from a listener and they discussed that issue. So you could check that out.
Yeah, I'll go back and I'll have a look and see what they have to say on that. I know the guy who seems to be running it is a Catholic, an English Catholic.
Yeah, Arthur Wellesley. We've had him on here before. Good guy. What's that noise? Is that coming from you, LUE-YEE?
Might be the AC. Just started a few seconds ago.
Yeah, I think it
Yeah,
just
might be the
start.
AC.
Yeah.
I don't know. On
It's
my
all
end,
right.
not that
You
loud.
need to stay cool. It was a hot day here, so I'm all for cooling down. It's funny. We actually, it was like scorching hot all day, and then a couple hours ago, it just started pouring rain. So we were due for some.
Hasn't rained today on my end. We're in Nova.
Northern Virginia?
Yeah.
Where that shooting happened, huh?
Yeah, I was nowhere near that shooting because I was at home.
Yeah.
That's the GOP baseball one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
I
so.
guess that's. Yeah, apparently there's some crazy guy with he's a Bernie Sanders supporter or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's funny how a lot of there's that Bernie Sanders supporter who had there's some incident with the Bernie Sanders supporter that people were trying to blame on evil crazy right wingers, but it turned out to be a Bernie guy. So funny that supporters are going crazy.
Yeah, there've been a couple of these lone wolf lefties who go out and start shooting people over the years, but rarely are they covered, or if they are, it's quickly forgotten. So stay in the news cycle.
Yeah, they got to keep the narrative going that right wingers are the biggest threat to America.
Oh yeah, I've seen that old study from a couple years ago being thrown around again on social media about how it's the right wing that's the greatest threat, not Muslims or anyone else.
Yeah, I think somebody on Twitter they found some article from I don't know like Salon or some type of thing like that where they're saying it's not Muslims that are the problem, it's men because you look at all these terrorists, they're mostly men, and
The
then
problem is not men,
right next to
it's
they posted,
also not Muslims.
and what is it?
Well.
Oh.
No.
Oh.
Who?
Yeah, there's
I
that.
saw someone on I'm sorry, I was just going to say I saw someone on Twitter was responding to some feminist who was saying something along the lines of that Salon article, and they said, "Well, problem with all these men is all these it's actually the women," and he was getting all these feminists quite angry. He was saying it was their fault.
Who is this now?
I can't remember. I'll have to go search for it.
This is on a YouTube channel or something?
Oh, this was on Twitter.
Oh. But what I was saying earlier was that somebody posted a screenshot of that article saying men are the real problem, not Muslims, and then next to it they post the screenshot of a story about these Muslim women who attacked a daycare worker in Britain, I think it was, because it's saying like something about Allah, like like Allah will punish you or something like that. So, and their comment of the tweeter made was something like, "Oops."
Allah.
Yeah, it's probably funny if you actually see it.
He sent his son to die on the cross and stuff.
What's that, Lee?
Allah's a good guy. He sent his son to die on the cross and all that for our sins. Who on the third day rose again, yes. Who himself is also Allah.
Well, yeah, I guess technically the Muslims do believe that their God is the same God. Like, they see God the same way we do. They look at it as the same God, but they just see Muhammad as being a specific prophet of our God that we should be following and that they are correctly following is how they see it.
Yeah, there's an issue I know in I think in Malaysia, and I don't know if in other countries as well, where
they don't allow it.
Yeah, they don't like Christians saying Allah. They think that that's their word specifically.
Which is silly because I think there's no other word for God anymore in Malay. And also, Christians in the Middle East have been using Allah to refer to God for many hundreds of years, more than 1,000 years.
Well, yeah, my understanding is that the word Allah just means the God.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not like a sacred name.
Yeah.
Necessarily. I don't know. Of course, I mean, Jews, they have to put a hyphen in God's name or an underscore because they think his name is too holy to say.
Pharisees
or to write.
Tons of shit.
What's that?
Pharisees make up all kinds of shit about what they can't do, and then they go, oh, let's string out, this wire around New York so that we can technically be at home when we're doing these things on the Sabbath.
Oh, I remember
That's
hearing
one of
that
the
story.
funniest things. I mean, how does it? It seems strange, like a string, that would be enough to constitute a roof or whatever the peculiarities are of that.
What was the whole story with that again? Exactly, like how does this string work? Like they're saying that if there's a string above them, that means they're at home.
Yeah, I mean,
That there's
okay,
a
so
roof.
technically, this is actually the same way that Princeton University does its alumni reunions, because in the state of New Jersey, technically you're not supposed um, to have open alcohol out on the street, out of doors and stuff. So what they do for reunions every year is that they build these wooden fences um, outside with tents, and the lawyers have it covered so that that thing is technically indoors or whatever it is that the law requires. Meanwhile, there are all these alumni and seniors around who are drinking and stuff and getting quite drunk. I mean, sometimes they just have ambulances on standby. This year was relatively good. I was walking around Princeton and it didn't smell like alcohol and puke, which was refreshingly, it was a refreshing change from the last 2 years that I'd gone.
Yeah, I bet. That doesn't sound very pleasant.
But yes, I think it's the same kind of lawyer thing.
It's not like they have their own law school to take those lawyers from.
Princeton doesn't have a law school.
That's what I'm saying. They don't have a law school to take.
So I guess they have. Yeah.
It's actually funny. Princeton does not have a law school. It's one of those oddities.
Doesn't have a lot of other stuff.
Like what?
Like the hordes of SJWs that Harvard and Yale have. I mean, it has SJWs, but in comparison with most of the Ivy League, I think Princeton is the best place to go.
It's the least bad, I guess.
And you still can, at Princeton, find people who are kind of like us. We can talk about somewhat edgy things,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you're thinking about applying for the Ivy League, look into Princeton. Seriously, do it.
Yeah, find the conservative papists. I think you'll recognize them. I mean, not just the conservative papists, but the trad papists who, like drinking and, I mean, like, having nice, fine drinks in their Spellman apartments and have sometimes Vatican flags in their rooms and other paraphernalia that indicate possible Jacobite sympathies.
Nice. Yeah. So now that we've said this publicly, they're going to start going after Princeton.
Yeah.
Because we all know that everybody's listening to this right now. All 9 people out there.
Because guess what? Everyone actually goes after people. They judge by what podcasts I go on and what Christian hangouts I go on, because that's what the SJWs do. They just follow me.
I haven't seen you get into it with any SJWs, LUE-YEE.
No, I really haven't.
I guess you have that Chinese protection.
I don't know
What are
about
you
that. I mean, if you're with Asian, everything's fair, right? So they're not going to be like, you're not white, I can't criticize you. But yeah, it's I can make it more awkward for white people, which is fun.
I do try to surprise people sometimes when I'm on Twitter. Like yesterday, I was kind of doing a little bit of trolling on Twitter just because in Virginia, Corey Stewart was running, and a lot of people were getting really triggered by him because he's like defends the Confederacy, and
he's not
I guess,
even defending the Confederacy.
He's just the monuments.
Yeah, they're just monuments. I mean, what's the big?
Well, I mean, even the Confederacy though, like you just see the tweets. Like Corey Stewart just said that Robert E. Lee was a good and honorable man. I mean, wow, just wow. I can't even like so. Like anybody associated with the Confederacy is automatically by default evil in their minds. So I just had some fun with some of these people.
Yeah, and then you point out that people from the North said that Lee was an honorable man, and they'll say, yeah, that's because they were all racist. Okay, well, maybe they were, but what are you going to do about it?
They're monuments, too.
Let's pull all of them down. We'll have no history. We are just going to erase anything that was not Negroes from that period. We're going to brownwash American history. That's how it's going to be.
Hey, did you see Hamilton?
Hamilton? Oh, yeah.
You remember that thing?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that play.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's like some Broadway play.
Yeah.
Brownwashing.
Brownwashing.
It's a real thing.
Yeah, someone should accuse them of appropriation and brownwashing. Why isn't this being done?
We really need to. I mean, it really would be fun to see how far you could get with that.
I don't know if you get all that far, though.
If I go that far, I'm going to be accused of being white, as if that's a crime.
Yeah. You're just acting white.
Acting white? Well, I am Tacarian, so, I guess I am white.
You are what?
I'm Tacarian.
What did you said you're what, Lee?
Tacarian. You know
what does that mean?
The mummies they found in
northwest China, those mummies that were red-haired or blonde.
And genetically, they tested the genetics, and it was like they were all basically the same as a Western European.
Right. I mean, I'm sure I'm not very Tacarian, but I think I'm probably somewhat Tacarian. That's where my red hairs come from.
Yeah, we know about your famous red hair.
I occasionally have a red hair, and some of my facial hair is in the red range.
You're basically a ginger.
Yeah, I'm basically a ginger. I even have freckles. Sometimes to my chagrin.
We was sons of heaven, yo.
we was children of the sun, a la Richard Spencer.
Yeah. Well, actually, aren't we considered ice people if you're European or Northeast Asian? You're considered.
I'm definitely Hyperborean.
Yeah. So we're ice people.
Yep.
People of the frozen water. H2O in its solid form. Yeah.
Sino-Hyperborean master race.
Yep.
Sino-Hyperborean.
I actually recorded a Chateau Autiste attempt at Chateau Autiste talking about how the true Aryan man is the antithesis of our rodent, but I haven't had the courage to send it into TRS yet. Yeah, I related it to cartoons and things like that. I made an observation about how rodents are degenerate. If somebody added Vivaldi to it, it would sound perfect, I think.
They don't seem to do that much anymore.
Yeah, I don't know if they're just not getting submissions, or I should send an email asking if he wants it. But I don't know. I've sent him emails before and he didn't reply. I don't know if he just gets so much that he can't respond to everything or what.
I would assume it's probably that. I mean, especially now. I think they've probably gained a lot more attention.
Yeah. Yeah, Chateau Autiste is always one of my favorite segments because some of them are really funny. If you want to keep a woman, you have to treat her like a dog. So, you take the ball and you throw it and say, fetch. And she will respect you more for this. You guys remember that one?
No, I don't. The one that I remember the most was about the Aborigines. Do you remember that?
I don't know if I do. What was that one about?
It was like they were the true traditionalists. And
that one seems to have slipped my memory, but
yeah, there was another one I remember.
I think the funniest one was where he was reading from some text about I think he called it sodomite apelings or something silly like that, and it was like from some text he was just reading straight from it. It was really funny, like just the language being used is very colorful, and it was I don't know. It's one of the things that's only funny if you hear it, I guess. But it was a classic.
Yeah, some of these are hard to explain.
Yeah.
Now I think about it, like one of them involved like electric apes or something.
Yeah.
Like
yeah, that might be
Egyptian
similar to the one. Yeah, that might be the one
apes.
I'm thinking of.
Okay. Just some absurd stuff.
Yeah. I'm looking at the text chat right now. I'm seeing let me see here. Oh, there's quite a discussion going on here, and we're not even talking about it. I think they're a lot more heated than we are. Hold on, let me see here. What was there's something I wanted to. Somebody says, really, I bet a politician would get tons of votes for admitting to be an atheist, really. Actually, Ryan Landry just posted something about Mark Zuckerberg claiming to no longer be an atheist, and I think he's saying that that's like a sign that he's hoping to run for office at some point. So, yeah, I mean, I don't think that's. I think people still like. Yeah, this person's obviously a troll. This person's saying this stuff, but yeah, I mean, there's a. Yeah, I still think that most people feel more comfortable with knowing that their elected officials are religious in some way. But I mean, like I think I guess there was Pete Stark. Is he the only open atheist in the American Congress?
Oh, I think my parents are home. So I might have to leave soon.
Oh, hey, Lumen's here. I didn't see you come in. Sorry, I was busy reading the text chat. Hey, Lumen.
Yep. Hi. Sorry I was late, and I'm sorry if you'll be leaving, LUE-YEE.
That's all right. You can take his place, Lumen.
Those are large and exotic shoes to fill.
No, they're not that large. His foot have been. They do foot binding in China, so they're very. That was a bad joke. I don't think they do that to men anyway.
I was about to say he's many things, but a tranny is not one of them.
Yeah. Don't they just make your feet small or something? Yeah.
Yeah, but it's generally reserved for women, if I'm not mistaken. And
do they still do that, Louis? Do you know? Is that just a thing from the past, or I guess he's hanging out with his parents then?
I think we've crossed the threshold of acceptable insult to our good friend LUE-YEE.
We're just banting him.
It finally happened. It had to happen.
Yeah. It finally happened. You know that song, right?
No.
I'm Going Slightly Mad by Queen. Okay, never mind.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah, I do.
It finally happened.
I just didn't recognize your version. Sorry.
Slightly mad. The notes for this one are going to be fun. Have you been listening, Lumen, to anything we've been talking about so far?
I have not. I apologize. I've been running around and I remembered. I thought I remembered that you mentioned on Twitter that you were going to have a hangout tonight, and
yeah,
I said, "Oh my gosh, I'm going to check." So I've missed everything.
Yeah, we actually. I mentioned you earlier. Even I mentioned that our friend Thomas here. He said that he's done some looking into Catholicism and that he's never attended a Latin Mass. And I said, well, Lumen would tell you to do that. Thanks for coming, LUE-YEE. See you later.
Take care. Oh, we missed him. Yeah, that is the true spirit of the Catholic faith. I think. I mean, it's legitimate to go to a Novus Ordo Mass, but it's just not the same. I couldn't deal with the regular Novus Ordo Mass myself anymore. So definitely look into it, Thomas. And it's a little daunting at first because it's kind of difficult to follow along, and that kind of gets in the way a little bit. And plus, if you don't really know anyone there, that's always kind of a little bit of an inhibition. But it's well worth it. It's absolutely worth it. It's the way the Mass has been celebrated for many centuries, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, definitely not knowing anybody, I think, would be the most daunting thing. I've been to a few of these I guess Novus Ordo or Vatican II style ones, and it didn't seem that foreign to me because I come from an Anglican background, and a lot of it seemed quite similar to the more high versions of Anglicanism, except there was more people crossing themselves, and I saw rosaries. But
yeah,
otherwise it seemed.
Yeah, it's kind of odd. Like I've been to the Philippines a few times, and when I go to a Novus Ordo Mass there, it's weird. It's like it reminds me a little bit of a Latin Mass, just because the attitude of the people, they're very reverent. They take it pretty seriously, and that's one of my favorite things about the Latin Mass. It's it's one of those things that, even though it's a little difficult, if you look into it enough and you use your better sense and kind of follow your gut, chances are you'll suspect that it's something good, that it's something worth your time, and that's kind of what you just need to go with until you can get over the initial shyness. And the thing is, people at the Latin Mass are always going to be happy to have new people coming. There are more people going these days than ever, definitely more so than when I first started going, but it's always nice to see new people, and we all know why. We all know that people are looking for a deeper experience, a more authentic experience. So I would recommend it. I mean, it is difficult to get over that, the initial sort of feeling out of place, but I think we all have a little bit of experience with that, at least online, because of our political beliefs. You kind of have to jump in at some point, and it's a little uncomfortable, but it's worth it in the end.
Yeah, I'll have to see what they're like. What's the deal with the oh my gosh, the SSPX? Is that like considered completely?
Well, they're not in full communion with Rome.
Yeah.
So you can go to an SSPX Mass and you can receive the the sacrament of reconciliation, also known as confession. You can, you know, but and they're legitimate, but it's recommended that you don't make a habit of it. It's there's a I don't know all the details. I kind of should, but I don't, you know, of why they're at odds still with Rome. But it's I have a lot of respect for them. I mean, they're I think in the main they're just looking to, you know, preserve the traditions that have made our faith what it is for all this time. So yeah, I mean, you can you know, attend the mass, and you can even say confession, and it's legitimate. I don't know if you can. I don't know if a baptism is, or again, I don't understand enough about it, not as much as I should. But you know, just attending a regular Latin mass it's a huge difference. You know, from the Novus Ordo, you'll see it. Like just for me, like I just, you know, after I had been going to church for a while, I just noticed that you know, people were coming in and just, you know, they weren't really worried about how they were dressed, and, you know, like a lot, like you know, on Sundays, like, you know, like the guys are all wearing like football jerseys, and you know, people are joking around and socializing, and it just wasn't a really reverent atmosphere, and it just didn't seem right to me, and that's kind of what started to drive me away. Hi, William.
Hello, sirs. Can you hear me?
All right, we're getting the usual gang here. It's fun. Although LUE-YEE was here and you missed him.
He got upset because we were calling him a tranny who engaged in foot binding.
Yeah, degenerate Chinese foot. No, we were. It's more like me making bad jokes, and yeah. And he had parents there, and he's like, "Well, why am I hanging out with these clowns when I could be hanging with my parents?"
That's
who are
true.
way cooler than these
Filial
clowns.
piety and all that. What's that?
Who are way cooler than these clowns.
Yeah.
The sad thing is they probably actually are.
What was that?
I said the sad thing is they probably actually are cooler than us.
Yeah. Well, that's okay. We don't need to be cool in the eyes of the world. We got. Well, I mean, I guess his parents are Christians, so it doesn't matter what the world thinks.
Yeah,
That is what God thinks.
I think, you know, like most of the people at, you know, the Nicene Council would think we were cool, and that's good enough for me.
Sure, you got to find your audience.
Yeah, even if it involves time travel.
I'm traveling into the future.
Wow.
Travel
we're all
rate
traveling
of
into the
1
future
second per second.
That's true.
Yeah.
We are all traveling into the future.
Sorry, I just got home from work. I'm kind of beat.
Yeah.
So I'm just.
Yeah, me too. I had a long day at work too, so I've kind of got a late start from this because I had to do a lot of stuff after I got home.
Oh, okay. So you haven't been on since 7?
No, we've got a little. No, we started maybe like 7:20 or something like that.
Oh, okay.
When people listen back to this, it won't seem like you're that as late as you are.
So
Sorry if I
what were you
interrupted
talking
you.
about when I interrupted you?
SSPX, I guess. Lumen was telling Thomas here about them, I guess.
Oh, SPX?
I forget what. SSPX, yeah.
That's SPX, yes.
Yeah, at some point I'll educate myself more about it, but go ahead, Thomas.
Well, I was just going to say, Will, if you knew anything more about it, like what the deal is, the relationship with the Catholic Church as a whole.
I think he was asking you, William.
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry.
I think I'm not sure what the actual the hard current status is. I mean, they were out of communion, but I think they've been allowed in under kind of a certain provisional.
Yeah, they're not. I think they're
But
like not in full communion, but they're not in schism either. I don't know what I really should know, and I'm kind of ashamed that I don't. But it's something in between.
Yeah, I'm not sure where Williamson fits into that kind of what his relationship is. And then you have like full blown what is this other movement? I have some of them on YouTube, which are far more radical.
Was that the people that want to make women priests and?
No. This is more reactionary. Like these
okay.
are more. These are people who think the last decent pope was in fact.
Oh, the Sedevacantists.
Yeah. Yes, that's right. Yeah. That's Sedevacantists. Yeah. I mean, I have a lot of sympathy for what they're doing, but yeah, I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, you just see the issue that arises, and I'm going to try to say this without upsetting too many people who are Protestant, but the issue is that the more you allow people to get involved in an almost democratic way, the more it approaches that sort of we can interpret, we the members of the church can interpret for ourselves, and things start to splinter, and that's one thing about my interpretation of one of the primary strengths of the Catholic Church throughout the ages is that even through times like this, when there was leadership that was questionable, there was leadership that even seemed detrimental to the well-being of the church, there was still the unity that recognized that ultimately Christ is in charge, and we'll get through this time, and which is what happened after, before, after, and during the time of Martin Luther. When the church is it's Christ's church, but it's on earth. It's run by men, so there are going to be times when they do a worse job than others. So I think that we can't allow too much division, too much assertion of the people, bringing their will forward.
Yeah, it becomes you can sympathize with the idea of saying that something is so corrupt that it needs to be replaced. I'm not saying I agree with that in terms of the church, but I do, obviously, I sympathize with that. I mean, I was raised Protestant, in fact, radical Protestant, so I was raised kind of believing that's a normal way of approaching apostasy or error, is to separate, come out of her, my people, and do not partake in her sins, that says in Revelation.
Yes.
But the problem is that the thing you started, this little fresh thing you started, that's, upright and holy and all that, it's prone to the same cycle of decay and decadence and degeneracy as
exactly
the thing that you isolated yourself from. So now you have, a long enough time that you've had these Protestant churches, which are themselves now paused. And in fact, even worse in many ways, because they are, or at least I would say you will have certain mainline Protestant churches that have almost completely purged themselves of traditional membership. Whereas, I mean, that's even up to and including the Anglican Church. You might have more conservative evangelicals, but you almost have the Anglo-Catholics are almost all entirely, and I'm an Anglo-Catholic, but they are almost all entirely pretty gooey and soft when it comes to social issues and stuff. So, yeah, so you have this problem of this, the degeneration comes, and it's almost worse because now it's founded on the text, but never on the text, on the interpretation of the text. Therefore, it's founded on not on tradition, but on it can be founded on innovation, or what's the word I'm looking for? Anyway, it's dependent on an interpreter who is seen as holy or unholy, or right or wrong, or however you want to look at it, versus this continuous functioning, spiritually, Holy Spirit animated body of Christ, which is the Catholic Church, and I include all the church essentially in that, but I mean, especially included, the Catholic Church, the Orthodox Church, the main churches that go back to the earliest days.
Yeah, and that's the thing. There's that long tradition. Like even now, I mean, people who get kind of freaked out and critical of the modern Catholic Church, and they because they think it's full of it's promoting some of the pause, and they're right, of course, they're absolutely right. But even now, it still is, you can't you still can't coerce the Catholic Church to sanction abortion and gay marriage. I mean, even while the church is like, on the side of, illegal immigration and just, ridiculous accommodations. There is some scary stuff that worries me. Communion for people who have committed adultery, and there are some weird theological things that worry me, but still, there's this long tradition that it's not going away. And the thing about the church is that it's built on Christ's promise that he's going to be with us till the end of time, and we have to have faith in that. And this is where the Latin Mass is just so vital right now for people who are just uncompromising in their Catholicism. The Latin Mass is there, and I'm not judging people who go to. I mean, when I was still going to the Novus Ordo Mass, there were like some elderly Italian people, Irish people who were just hardcore, going to Mass every day. They were still very uncompromising in their faith. But for me, it's the liturgy at the Latin Mass, and the people that go there are just more in line with what I'm looking to live, what I'm looking to be in my life. And they're the people that you see a lot of people online kind of LARPing about, like, yeah, we're going to be traditional, and we're going to make our own little communities, and we're going to our women are going to actually be women and take care of the kids. And I mean, that's what these people do, and I'll also remark briefly, I've told you guys here before that you'll hear plenty of, vociferous, respectful, but vociferous nonetheless, criticism of Pope Francis among the people that I go to Mass with. They're not, so it's not like we're just like, oh yeah, it's okay. He's all right. He's I mean, we respect him in matters of doctrine, but we're definitely at odds with him about his, goofy ideas about the environment and immigration, etc. And people get confused about that. I think that we see him as infallible across the board, and we don't.
Isn't that an issue though? Isn't the Pope supposed to be infallible
in matters of religious doctrine? Yes. When he's speaking
and outside of that?
Yeah, outside of that, I mean, there are, you know, there are times when you probably should listen to him, you know, but there are other times, you know, in his encyclicals and talks and you know, extemporaneous remarks to journalists on airplanes and stuff like that, where you kind of have to look at it and remember that he's a man, and he's you know, while he's the vicar of Christ, and you would have to be a pretty deranged person as a pope to take it upon yourself to really mess around with doctrine. But yeah, so you know, when it comes to what Francis says about like the environment, for instance, you know, that's a case where, you know, he's not citing scripture, he's not he's not pointing to dogma about it, he's giving his viewpoint. He is, I mean, he is, of course, you know, imbuing it with Catholicism, with Christianity, but it's up to you, you know, to decide in that case, and there's no mandate that you have to agree with him on stuff like that.
On the subject of infallibility, I was recently, actually it was just today, I was sort of pondering this issue while I had some moments to myself. Like, I was thinking about the fact that so often we want to put our faith in people, we want to put our faith in institutions, but we really can't do that. And I was thinking about how, you know, even if you look at the Bible, a lot of the people that God chose for specific purposes still committed sins. Like you look at King David committing adultery, you look at Peter denying Jesus 3 times, and things like that. I mean, or like, I guess, was it Peter who was rebuked by Paul for sort of doing a Judaizing, I guess? Is that somewhere in the New Testament, I believe?
Yeah, and this is, you know, this is why in the case of the Pope, you know, where he's not, you know, communing with the Holy Spirit and expounding on doctrine, and there's a list of what actually, you know, constitutes dogma, you know, like individual, and there, you know, there are varying degrees, but you're right, you know, we do rely on the Holy Father, you know, for the most vital aspects of our spiritual life and our salvation and our place here as pilgrims, you know, on our way to salvation. But you know, he is a man, and the same goes for priests, for anyone. You know, you know, this isn't to say that you should become cynical and just, you know, look at all humanity as, you know, just unworthy of your time and your devotion and your, I mean, you know, we do need to be close to each other, but yeah, I mean, there's, you can only expect so much out of a man, you know, ultimately, and this is why I mentioned that when it comes to being a Catholic at any time, but especially when in a time of crisis like right now, you have to remember Christ. You know, Christ said, you know, this is my church, I'm going to be with you till the end of time. You know, wherever 2 or more of you gather in my name, I'll be there with you. That's what you have to remember. You know, that's what Christ said, that's not what a man said. And, you know, of course, there you do lend some weight to, you know, what the apostle said, but going back to what you said, Ian, yeah, I mean, there's only so much you can, so much stock that you can put in men, you know, especially when it comes to your salvation.
Yeah, I was also thinking that there have been corrupt popes before who were basically, you know, they weren't really, like, they were just puppets of the government or whatever. I mean, so yeah, along those same lines. So
oh yeah, there've been some pretty bad ones, but I think unless I'm mistaken, and I could be, the whole issue of infallibility is fairly recent. Is that, am I mistaken in that?
Well, no, I mean this is, I
18th
guess it's,
century.
yeah. I mean,
19th century.
yeah. I think that before that, it was never.
It was assumed.
Exactly. I think
before.
Exactly.
Okay.
I think it was more of a reaction to, that's when the revolutionary spirit, which began with Martin Luther and picked up its pace with the Enlightenment and then onward, with Marxism, etc. That's, I think, when it, and this is, a constant theme that I bring to these hangouts is that the farther away societies get from making God a central figure of how they how they construct themselves, how they comport themselves, and how they maintain themselves, the more it becomes necessary for like the syllabus of errors. You guys read that? It was put together. I'm trying to remember which pope was it. It was, I think it was Pius the Ninth. It wasn't Pius the 10th, but and this is a good example. It was an encyclical. It wasn't gosh, it might not have even have been that. I don't remember, but it wasn't something that you had to see as infallible, but it was a clear statement about you should not separate church from state. You should not it's exactly what it says it is. It's about errors of modern times, and that's what has become more and more necessary the more that modernism has progressed and man has separated himself from God and how he lives his life and how he constructs his societies. It's become more and more necessary to explicitly state these things. So yeah, that's my long rambling answer to your question, Thomas. Yes, you're right. It is more modern.
Okay.
It was defined dogmatically under Pius IX in the late 1800s or the mid to mid 1800s, but it had been understood prior to that as an idea. But it seems to have started as a response to modernity and to the Reformation.
Yeah, it's always been understood that when the Pope was speaking about dogma and he said, Christ is, Christ is all God, Christ is all man. That carries more weight than the Holy Father saying, I think maybe it's time for the Spaniards to stop bullfighting. Maybe that's not maybe that's gratuitous violence towards God's creatures. You know what I mean? There was a, it was understood that there was a difference between, those two things.
Mm-hmm. As well as, I mean, I can't remember who pointed it out. I read this quite a few years ago, and I was first reading traditionalist writing. It might have been Guénon even, but anyway, I can't pronounce his name properly. But the idea that, papal infallibility, oh, this is terrible. The Pope thinks that he's infallible. Oh, what a joke. Well, scientific and postmodernity has a level of self worth and of a sense of infallibility that is beyond anything any Pope would fantasize about. In terms of minutia, like you were just saying, like in terms of minutia of life, like they literally invent new categories of being and then are willing to jail people who will not, like trannies, people who will not willing to be on board and to support. I mean, you can literally in certain states, if you don't use the right pronouns or use somebody's new name that they've given themselves, you are, guilty of a hate crime. So this idea that their understanding of the world is totally infallible is built into this kind of postmodern leftist or progressive worldview that is far beyond defense of, you know, the established dogma of the church. You know, it was never in order to give the Pope power to be like you said, just to be an innovator, to make changes for fun's sake, but rather for him to defend against, you know, in a time of revolution, to defend the church from becoming washed away, you know, on the shores of constant change and renovation.
Yeah, we're in a strange time. You know, we're in that time that, you know, you see in that meme, you know, that you know, hard times make strong men make easy times make weak men, and you know,
Weak men make hard times.
Exactly. Yeah, and when we're in that period of hard, you know, in between, yeah, when they're making hard times, you do need explicit reminders of the eternal things, you know, the eternal truths, and this is something that I think about. I was actually thinking of suggesting it, you know, for a topic at some point for our Hangouts about. I'm pretty sure I've mentioned it actually, but you know, young men in the alt-right, you know, they're in some ways they're somewhat adrift, and I mean they have some really, you know, solid philosophical moorings, you know, for as far as, you know, governance and you know, sociological constructs and you know, some solutions that, you know, to the myriad quandaries that we're beset with at the moment. But there's still the need for that, you know, that link between, you know, between those that came before us and those who will come after us, you know, that transcendence. And it's something I wonder about with guys on the alt-right. You know, if we do get, you know, an ethno state, you know, if we do get a sensible solution to the nihilism that we've been dealing with, you know, I almost wonder if it'll be like a sort of a spiritual whiplash for some of these guys, because, you know, they're going to be like, okay, you know, my whole reason for, you know, existing and asserting myself is, you know, is now absent, and I think this is where Christianity is instrumental. I mean, because Christians will have this purpose in good times or bad times, no matter what's going on.
Yeah. I agree with you there. I think in general, you need some kind of religious impulse. Any kind of lasting change, I guess. I don't know what I want to say. But yeah. I think religion is incredibly important, and at the moment, the alt-right as a whole is quite secular, and maybe that's working for them all right at the moment. But in the long term, yeah, I think you're right. There's going to be a spiritual void there, and hopefully it'll be Christianity that's there to fill that.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of something we don't need to stress out too much about right now, and you know, I mean, but it will be a big issue, because, you know, what man craves more than anything, whether or not he's aware of it, is the fulfillment of communion with his creator, and feeling purpose, and feeling that he's going somewhere, that his that it's depending on what you've been through in your life. Personally, myself, I've been considerably ill for some time now, and there are times where it's just like, I'm just so worn out. It's like, it just feels sometimes like, is it worth it? And this is what man craves, a transcendence. And so it's something we'll have to think about, down the road. And there was a recent Red Ice video, Reinhard, whatever, I can't remember what it's called, Reinhard report.
Operation Reinhard?
Yes, yeah, that's what it is. And he was saying like that the new ethno-state will need some sort of new, sort of mythos kind of, and like on one hand I was like, no, that's awful. That's the last thing we need. But on the other hand, I kind of get where he's coming from. It's like, I mean, the Christian in me is repulsed by the idea of atheism and paganism, but just the pragmatist and the earthly human being understands, and these are my brethren, these are my European brethren, and so it's a conundrum, that we will have to address, assuming that we get through the Kali Yuga, whatever you want to call it, the chastisement that we're going through right now.
Yeah. I wonder. It seems to me that'd be just incredibly difficult to try and create something new, and that for all the faults that we can see now in a lot of modern denominations. I mean, I certainly have seen a lot of it coming from a Anglican background, but that Christianity just in general has more to offer than I don't know. I don't want to sound like I'm being anti-pagan. I really don't care. People want to be that, but it seems rather, what I've seen anyway, seems rather empty.
Yeah, I mean,
idea.
Oh, go ahead, William.
Well, I was going to say the idea of making something new. I mean, this is very much cart before the horse. I mean, if there is in history a time when something happens, like some kind of spiritual revival or a new kind of spiritual philosophical movement, that precedes the nation states that might then fall under its auspices, whereas the idea that, we want a nation state, but we need it animated by some spiritual thing, and we're kind of sick of this one, and we kind of think we understand a little bit about this, but we're going to need a new ethos. This is untried as far as I know in human history, so good luck, see what happens. But it's not I mean, I do think people's reconnection with the pagan lore and even the pagan gods is not inauthentic. I actually do it myself to some extent. I have my own way of understanding.
Yeah, and there is something admirable about it. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, these are our people's stories. I mean, if you understand them as being, in a kind of Jungian way, as kind of these kind of deep psychological and spiritual daydreams of our folk soul, well, you can't escape them. Christianity can't even ultimately erase them.
Well, and it represents a willingness. Well, first, a recognition that you're, in the throes of nihilism, and a willingness to transcend that, to get out of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I mean, I think people are. Yeah, I mean, I think maybe it's our job not to make Christianity palatable, but to show that Christianity, well,
yes,
to be I mean, it's always going to be somewhat unpalatable, as C.S.
Oh yeah,
Lewis
yeah.
says.
It's not fun.
It ultimately challenges the human being at such a fundamental and profound way that it's terrifying. So you can't turn it into candy, floss, and unicorns, and then have it still remain, even though that's kind of what this last generation of Christians has done.
All of this just is a reflection of how atomized we become, how completely stripped of our spiritual selves, whether that's Christian, it was largely Christianity. Let's be frank, that's where we arrived at as Europeans, and there were it did splinter, splintered off from the church, and then so there were several versions, but we arrived at Christianity, and the just where we are now, just the atomization, and then when we kind of, and God bless this current generation. I have so much admiration and hope in them, because they're the ones who have been trying to kind of sweep up the shards and put them together in as much as they can, and to try to move forward a little bit, and that's it. This is all just a reflection of how just how completely exploded we've become as a culture, and yes, Christianity, it's not fun. Everyone should understand that real, authentic Christianity is not at all fun, and it shouldn't be. It's hard work, and it's difficult and painful. But you're right, William. It's up to us to, by how we live, to show people that just by example, to show that there's something beautiful about this. There's something desirable about this.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what you're saying, Lumen, that it's like, I do think that when people talk about trying to make Christianity relevant, it's like, no, we're supposed to lead them. They're not supposed to be leading us. That's one thing that always bothers me when I hear that line of thinking. But so yeah, I think we do definitely have to show what's good about it, and that's one thing that I hope we're doing with these hangouts, that we're showing people the beauty of it.
Yeah, I hope so too.
I just wanted to say, before we get too far off topic, based on some things you've been discussing about like the alt-right and paganism and things like that. I guess I've talked with Lumen about this privately, but I've become, in some ways, the alt-right has become sort of, I don't know, just the secular version of it. It seems like the direction it's going in is something I'm not completely happy with. It feels like it's just kind of becoming a little bit, I don't know, like, I know we've had some controversy lately over the kind of stuff that's coming on in these hangouts where people talk about National Socialism or fascism, which are things I have said many times already I don't identify with. And I guess in some ways, when I see that the alt-right is kind of coalescing in that direction for a lot of people, it does make me wonder, like, whether it's going in a direction that I'm necessarily belonging in, or whether, I mean, I'm not saying I'm rejecting the alt-right or anything like that. I'm just saying that, like, I wonder if the direction a lot of the people are going in is really the same one that I want to be going in, which is, I guess, I'm trying to look past, like, just the sort of a simplistic view a lot of people have, and I'm trying to have a more comprehensive view about, like, how traditions matter, and how not just say, like, well, just get a good just worship your race and get rid of the Jews or something like that, and that's going to solve all your problems. Like, no, that's not. That just seems to be how a lot of people look at it. And sorry if I'm not making sense here. I just, I guess, just, I do think that the alt-right, in some ways, I'm not completely sure whether I'm on board with the direction it seems to be taking in a lot of sectors of it, at least. And also, I wanted to say on the subject of paganism, I think there was a recent post on Cambria Will Not Yield where he talked about paganism. And I guess the basic narrative he put forward is something like paganism of our European ancestors were essentially they were blood cults, and so that's why they engaged in a lot of barbarism. They engaged in a lot of things that we would find disgusting. But he said that the way he puts it is like once they saw Jesus Christ, they realized this was better than the blood cults, and that truly like having a heart of charity was a better thing. So I guess I don't know if you guys really read Cambria Will Not Yield, but he he's very like he believes that Christianity is part of the European hearth fire, as he puts it, and that that Europeans are like, as he puts it, the Christ-bearing race, and that we were like the first race to really accept Jesus Christ into our hearts and sort of project it to the rest of the world. And I don't know, I can't necessarily vouch for all his theology necessarily, but his way of putting it is very poetic and very stirring. And I'm probably not doing it justice by describing it here, but like he doesn't have a very high view of pagans, but he does think that like, I guess he sees it as like, finding Jesus Christ was like the ultimate step in the European people's story, that, we had a period of barbarism, but then we found Jesus, and then that like completed it sort of. So yeah, I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that. But.
Well, some of my thoughts on why young white nationalists might gravitate to paganism is part of it might be that they identify Christianity with Semitism, or or just that it just seems to them that it's more authentic, to go back further, to our more primordial religious beliefs. But I think part of it might be what you kind of touched upon, which is that it's perhaps more bloodthirsty, and because one thing I think that one of the flaws of the white man is, I'll bring up the poem again. When the Saxon learned to hate, we wait. We're pretty forbearing, and then sometimes when we finally do react to being needled, being used, being taken advantage of, we really kind of overcorrect. And I think that might be the case, where you're looking at what's been going on, what's been happening to whites in their own countries, and you get so furious, and rightly so, you should, that your first reaction might be, okay, well, we used to be more religious, and then you might think, okay, but Christianity just totally cucked, and that's part of why we're here. So perhaps they go back even further to paganism. It's like when we were berserkers, and just like would wipe out a whole village, root and branch. So I don't know. That's one idea I have about it. I don't know about you guys.
That's an interesting theory there. Yeah. Sorry, did you have something to say, Thomas?
I was just going to say, I think there's a lot of truth to that. That search for something more authentic. And a lot of these people, I'm sure they aren't really even growing up in all that Christian background, or if they are, it's it's paused or what have you. It doesn't seem real to them, and I get the allure of the ancient folklore and the myths and the heroes and all that, but it really does seem kind of empty. I don't know. I wonder how many people really are believing in it, right? Like believing in these gods, or how exactly they're forming their theologies. But I mean, if they're going to argue that, well, oh, Christianity's time is done, it's failed, well, then obviously the same could be said of what came before it, right? Because I mean, that's most of them are just we know very little about, right? Like we know a little bit about what the Greeks thought and what the Norse thought, but a lot of those paganisms, Celtic or otherwise, it's basically completely extinct. So I mean, yeah, I think they're gonna have to just, they don't want to go to Christianity. They're gonna have to make something almost out of nothing, because paganism seems quite dead.
Yeah, I mean, I really don't see paganism ever really making a comeback, because it's too, again, like, if you want to have civilization, like, that's real, I don't know. I don't think you can use blood cults to really, like, you might say it's more authentic, but it's like authentic in the way that, giving into your animalistic nature is more authentic expression of your desires. I mean, it's like, yeah, it might have a certain base truth to it, but it's not necessarily most conducive to human uplift or human improvement.
Well, and I think that it should also be considered that, Christianity was so successful in Europe, not just because it was brutally imposed, on an unwilling, helpless populace. There's something about the European soul and the European intellect that, that really made Christianity resonate with it. And there's Christianity, going back to Catholicism, there is enough allowance for, for that warlike spirit. Christ was at one time portrayed almost like a warrior. Gosh, I'm trying to remember that poem. There's that poem about the tree.
The Dream of the Rood.
Yes, the Dream of the Rood. Yeah, you look at that. This is why we had the Crusades. There was, so there's that balance of refinement and intellect and truly profound and elaborate introspection and contemplation on the soul and on the eternal, balanced with the temporal, wherein there are times when you have to pick up arms and defend yourself, defend the faith. So that should be considered. There's and I think that's partly why some like the Norse, the Anglo-Saxons and some of the Germanic tribes were amenable to Christianity, because there was enough. I think that perhaps people look through the lens of modernity at what came before, without realizing that Christianity was a bit different back then. It wasn't it wasn't about passing the basket around to feed orphans in the Levant or in Tunisia or whatever. It was a bit different. So that that should be considered as well, I think.
Yeah, and there's plenty
Well, I know
of
that a lot of
cases.
early churches. Oh, go on, go on.
Well, I'll just quickly say, I mean, it's often brought up that it was everywhere brought by the sword, but there's plenty of cases where it did come peacefully, like amongst the Celts, I think it's pretty fair to say, or the Anglo-Saxons, and so yeah.
At least in
So I
the
mean,
initial.
people did like respond to it. It wasn't just a king forcing everyone to give up a more authentic natural faith for this one.
You're saying that they accepted. I'm sorry.
Well, what I was trying to say is that it wasn't just like I hear a lot that it was always imposed in a violent manner and or from
Christianity
above,
was?
right? Yes, that's right.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess Constantine did sort of impose it in some ways, but by declaring himself a Christian. But I mean, but like that wouldn't have happened like if there hadn't been people coming to the faith on their own who were.
Yeah, even by that time there had been plenty of people had been converting. So
Mhm. I have been wondering lately just to whether that's really the only thing we can hope for is for people to convert. I mean, like we talk about nations converting, we talk about nations accepting Christ, but I mean, like at the end of the day, like it comes down, like I don't think you can say like you're saved because you have you belong to a Christian nation. You ultimately you still have to. You're still an individual as a soul, so you're responsible for obeying God, and you're responsible for attaining salvation, like or seeking salvation on your own. So I don't know. I guess to me it's like that's. I'm thinking that's how it's always going to be. Maybe that was just perfectly obvious, but I don't know. It's just I think that sometimes we get too caught up in like looking at wide scale conversions of it. We miss the fact that it ultimately has to be done on an individual level, and that's why I believe that even if politically things don't go our way, that there'll still be people keeping the faith, and there'll still be people loving their own people, and there'll still be people who are loyal. And I believe that there's a siren in the background somewhere.
Oh, that's me.
Uh-oh. Police are after you, William.
William's riding around on his fire truck, his little miniature fire truck.
The real motor.
Woohoo!
Woo!
Is that from a movie or something?
No, it's from the febrile, regions of my imagination. But yeah, the European soul is, to a fault, often is extremely individualistic, and this is another thing that resonates, with Christianity is, while Christianity does absolutely emphasize, the body of the church, there's so much onus on the individual. There's it's the responsibility of the individual to recognize the order, the reasonable way that God has constructed reality, and including the moral sense, and how the individual needs to reconcile himself to that. And so, this is something that just wasn't so much of a difficult choice back when it wasn't really a choice, if you know what I mean. It's, you know, once we introduce, you know, highly secular societies where it's like, it's a choice, you know, I'm going to decide that I do want to be religious, that I do want to follow, you know, the faith of my great grandparents and my people, you know, it becomes kind of you know, that's when it becomes a little bit more difficult. It used to be, it was never easy, you know, to be a good Christian. It was never easy to make sure that you wake up every day and you make the choice, like, I'm going to be in love with my wife. I'm not gonna cheat. You know, I'm not going to take the easy way out. I'm going to work a little harder at this or whatever, you know, whatever it is. You know, it's never been easy, but it's kind of, I think the argument could be made that it's, in a broad sense, it's easier when you're doing this as an individual, you know, making this individual choice each day among a lot of other people who are doing the same.
Yeah, the community is an essential part of. Yeah, it's not a philosophy for individuals. This is always kind of problematic in the modern context, and especially the way we work, the way we live. You know, our neighborhoods are not, you know, even sort of economically connected, other than, you know, that we shop at a grocery store nearby or something like this. But we don't have we don't live in economic communities per se. We live in financial collectives in a way where so that the kind of necessary relationship with our neighbor, almost none of our relationship with our neighbors is necessary. It's just sort of accidental. There's not a real connection. So this is the problem with the way, you know, many aspects of the kind of large economies that we live in, whether they be global or even just national or even state or provincial or whatever, where I suppose people who live in smaller communities, smaller towns, still have more kind of real connection to each other, and that would be economic and other. But
even that's being undermined, you know, by the lords of pause, you know, by the you know, here in the U.S., you know, the HUD, you know, Department of Housing and Urban Development, where, you know, you've got, oh, you know, there are too many, you know, this area of Minnesota, there are just too many people of, you know, whatever, Danish descent, you know, they're all Lutherans. We should probably transplant 800 Somalians here, you know, or, you know, stuff like that. You know, it's because you're right, William. You're absolutely right. That's it's something. It coheres, you know, a people, you know, to have that community. And Christianity used to be just a vital and, you know, almost unnoticed part of that. Unnoticed in the sense that, you know, it was just the same thing as, okay, you know, this part of town is, you know, where we've always had the fair every year, whatever, you know, things like that.
Yeah, we,
you know,
yeah, we,
on that. Oh, go on.
No, you carry on.
Oh, well, what I was gonna say in response to that might have kind of taken us in a different direction. If this is just, I don't know, if you have something more specific to that topic that you wanted to say, William, I want to let you say it.
No.
Is there anything?
Nothing
Okay.
pertinent. No.
Well, okay, but I was gonna say in response to what Lumen just said was that talking about how communities can help like reinforce beliefs and help reinforce people's behavior and things like that. I mean, excuse me, that's definitely true, and it just sometimes I'm curious, like to what extent in historical times European people have been. I mean, you talk about how European souls are very individualistic, but I mean, I wonder. I mean, has it always been as individualistic as now, or was it less individualistic in the past? Because I mean,
oh, definitely less so in the past, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I just wonder, like, if what we think of as individualistic has always been like a distinct quality. Like, I remember, like, for example, we hear about Asian countries, how they tend to be very conformist, how people tend to be very like, there's this expectation that you're not going to stand out too much, like that's just part of their culture. And like, I remember hearing about how in China there are proverbs that say things like, the tallest tree is always the first one to get cut down, meaning, like, you know, don't try to stand out too much or else they'll have a target on your back, that kind of thing. But and I remember, I think it might have been John Derbyshire mentioned talking to a woman who used to be she's a Japanese woman who, I guess, left Japan, and she said, "Oh, I couldn't stand there. You wouldn't believe how conformist it is." And, like, she just couldn't take it. But I wonder, like, in past times, were European societies just as conformist as Japan today when they were more homogeneous, or were they less so? I wonder.
Well, I mean,
if there's any way to really measure that.
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, going back to, you know, way back, you know, to the Proto-Europeans and, you know, Indo-Europeans, and I mean, there seems to be something about growing up in a cooperative society where you're, you know, it's you and your people against the elements, and you're also, you know, more intellectually engaged than, say, people in sub-Saharan Africa or the Middle East, although some of our ancestors probably came from the Middle East. There seems to be something that kind of elevates the individual who can, in spite of his station, in spite of his background, you know, his family, whatever, who's capable, who has enough wherewithal to lead in some way. So I think it's always been there to some degree, you know, and you know, whether that's the chieftain, you know, or the shaman, you know, the what's his name there on the Vikings show there, Toki, is it the shipbuilder? You know, the people like that, you know, they're this individualism, you know, where it's revered. It will elevate you, and so that's where I see it coming from. That's I think that's, you know, that's not a definitive answer. Obviously, I'm not an anthropologist. I'm not a I'm not even very well read on this topic. But that's one area that I think from whence it comes, I think.
Yeah,
From whence is redundant. Whence means from where. So saying from whence is kind of unnecessary.
Whence it comes.
Yeah. There you go. Anyway, William, you were going to say?
Oh, just I'll have to watch my grammar though. Just
you don't have to watch it. Ian will watch it for you.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. I'm a grammar watcher. No, it's good to have people who know correct use of language.
It's become, I guess, kind of a running joke on these hangouts that I correct people's grammar.
That's true.
Every pops up and it pops up. But anyway, go on.
I think, yeah, I don't think I think that's an Asian disposition. I don't think it's kind of funny on Facebook. Somebody posted a while back on my normie book kind of stream, just people in town that I know. And somebody said, "Oh, if only we could do this." And it was this picture of like Japanese subway loading and offloading and loading of the subway cars as they came in, and people got off and people got on, just completely orderly, without any glitch, without anybody standing out and so forth. Well, why can't we do this? Well, because first of all, we don't have homogeneous societies, and secondly, we're not Japanese. Like it's so obvious that this is the disposition of these people. Now, the question is, if we were more homogeneous, are we more that way inclined? We're actually more inclined towards pushing for conformity now than we ever have, in terms of it seems to be the spirit of the conformist that is kind of dominating in the SJW kind of world, in the Prague world, or the Prague where the power seat is there. They're the ones that are pushing for conformity of language use, conformity of all kinds of things, where, you know, they seem to be the ones who are mostly against this kind of individualism, which is, I think, a part of our nature, to be. I mean, ultimately, you only, you know, vary within a very small range, but that you are varying and that you sort of intend to vary is, I think, kind of part of our fundamental disposition as Europeans, or various, maybe certain European tribes people have different disposition. I don't know. I've certainly had it most of my life, or all my life, kind of individualist strain, as well as community, though. So I don't know. I'm rambling a bit.
Well, no, that is interesting. I mean, you mentioned the Japanese thing. I remember seeing this YouTube video a while back of these like Japanese people who are like they're just walking in these like patterns. It's very orderly, and it's really very, very visually amusing.
Or like with the umbrellas, like, you see where they're like lifting the umbrellas, like just in perfect time, so they don't hit somebody with it, right? And they're all walking along in the rain, and the umbrellas are just bopping up and down without a hitch.
No, it wasn't an umbrella. They were like inside a gym or something, and they were like walking in certain lines. They were like dividing and going off into different directions, but like making these like they were forming these perfect patterns, and they would like be like intersecting, like the head of the line would intersect with the back of the line, but they would never bump into each other. Like they'd be timed perfectly to walk in between the thing and that kind of stuff. And it was really cool. I should find that video. And yeah, I mean, just so it is, I guess, in some ways, it seems like the Japanese tend to be good at just being very ordered, I guess you could say. That maybe that's just the way they are. But I forgot where I was going with this.
Yeah,
go on, Lumen.
Well, vis-a-vis, you know, William's point about the conformity. That's almost like the other side of it. And this is like one of the huge weaknesses of white people, is this exaggerated need for social esteem, and that kind of goes along with it a little bit in a way. And it's just out of balance. You know, it's been taken advantage of. You know, it's, you know, enough people who aren't in our in-group recognized it and saw that they could get something out of it. But it's almost like that's the other side of it. You know, you have the strong leader who, you know, as long as he and unfortunately these days she is, you know, getting results, you know, they'll be in the good graces of the people, and that in a way kind of breeds a need for you know, the endorsement of others, where you're not going to see that in the Middle East, you know, where, you know, if you read a good book, The Arab Mind by Raphael Patai, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but he said that there's this saying among Arabs, and it's, you know, me against my brother and I against my father, my family against my father's family, our clan against the other clans, and so on and so forth. I mean, it's just it's hard and fast. There isn't that individualistic spirit. So yeah, I mean, there is. It's out of balance now. There isn't so much. And it's actually, the individual has been co-opted. Someone like Barack Obama, who can rise as an individual, catering to this this collective. It's a very complex thing.
Perhaps I've misunderstood some of what is being said here, but maybe the issue with the conformity is like in the past, maybe you were freer to say certain things, maybe outside, like maybe you couldn't say insult the king or something like this, but otherwise you're more free in that way. But it was like you were tied to the land more, right? You were a serf or you were just poor. But now, the standard of living has risen so high. People are freer now to do more of what they want, but at the same time, there's been this greater push to make us all think and say the same things.
Yeah,
well, I think
that's a good point.
I think that in some ways, like, there's sort of like a natural conformity, just because when you have similar people, they tend to think along the same lines, so there's no need to like police it as much. Like, I know that you mentioned John Derbyshire again. I remember he had an article once where he was talking about free speech in Britain, and he talks about how when he grew up back in the 50s and 60s, like, nobody ever worried about like, oh, I can't say this, I can't say that. People just spoke freely and they didn't worry too much about it. But nowadays they have all these speech codes in Britain where you could get arrested for saying certain things, but it's like, I think that because people generally had the same mindset about certain things and they had a general tolerance for differences of opinion, like nobody had to feel like they had to say one thing or another. But I don't know, it's kind of a complex issue because it's like where do you make the distinction between conformity or just natural similarity? Like, is it conformity? I guess conformity means sort of connotes a certain sense of coercion, whereas uniformity suggests it's just sort of a natural similarity. So
it wasn't much of an issue when we were a homogeneous people, peoples,
yeah.
I should say.
And didn't in Democracy in America, didn't de Tocqueville talk about how in America there was sort of like a natural, like, shared mindset that people had, where like they was like, I remember reading a passage from there where he kind of talked about how, like, I should probably look it up, but it's something to the effect that like they don't even consider certain ideas, or because it's just like they all kind of think the same way. Or I'm probably butchering that concept. Maybe I could find the passage, but
it sounds familiar.
Yeah, but it's like, I guess with conformity, it's like you don't have to. There's a good kind of conformity when it works and it helps people to work collectively without being coercively enforced. But then there's another kind of conformity where it's sort of like imposed on you. And I guess sometimes it's hard to tell where one of them begins and one of them ends.
Right. So yeah, okay. So like now with what we can see with the media and education, and it would be that would be the different type of conformity than what would have been several hundred years ago.
Yeah.
What you're saying.
Yes, and plus we've altered, our natural order. Just one example beyond, abandoning having a homogeneous, ethnically homogeneous society, just women's suffrage. This throws things. This really throws things off. It's and this is like, learning more about ethnicity and getting into the alt-right. It's really, it's changed my mindset in a lot of things. Where back when I called myself a conservative, I just used to be like, these Muslims, they're just freaking barbarians, and this, how can they live this way? And and now, I mean, beyond the fact that I think it's sad, like the way they treat dogs, and a few other things, but I kind of have to say that this is just what works for them. This is, it's who they are, and this is our issue now, is we're not living as we were meant to live, as we, whether you want to call it, as we evolved to live, as God decreed that our people, our race should live. It's and it's just, it's given us no end of chaos and suffering and tumult and just madness. And that's where, that's where we're starting from. That's where we're starting to sort things out. Even if we can, here in the U.S. and something different in Europe, even if we can, partition up the U.S. and get ourselves back to a reasonably uniform, racially uniform society, and we're still going to have to sort that stuff out. I personally, going back to my example again, I personally believe that, the franchise should be removed from women and that, and from others as well. So, I mean, it's going to take some time to get back to who we actually are.
Yeah.
We don't even know ourselves. We've become so,
yeah, that's true,
far removed. Yeah. To even begin to answer the question I originally brought up as to what extent we were conformist or not in the past.
Yeah.
See, the thing is individualistic or collectivist as we've ever been in our societies, and you can, I mean, you can reasonably make the argument that, like, say the Swedish, we're always a little bit more conformist, whatever. But the bottom line is that there was always a reasonably similar hierarchy throughout all our societies, and with the abandonment of that hierarchy, everything else is kind of thrown into disarray.
Yeah, the hierarchy exists, remains. I don't think you can ever actually get rid of these things, but it exists in some kind of mutilated form rather than whole.
Yep,
so
true.
People
True.
surrender to hierarchy all the time, but it's some kind of ideals or principles. I mean, you look at leftists who are apparently the most anti-hierarchical people, and yet they, like I was saying before, I mean, they make papal infallibility look like a suggestion. I mean, the amount of stuff that they know is absolutely true and that people must absolutely surrender to is enormous body of writing, and I mean, not that it doesn't constantly change, but that's part of its thing. The authority, though, to demand that people surrender to and conform in this weird way. I mean, yeah, it's this weird kind of interrupted sense of both conformity and individualism, because when you're looking at a Muslim terrorist, somebody blows some people up, well, he's just an individual. how can you dare say that his
Yeah.
his religion is a collection of people, and that he is acting in some way, even if many of the people in it are not, don't like it or don't like the ramifications of what he's done or she's done.
Well, they certainly see it collectively.
They're still acting within. Sorry.
Oh, I was just saying. Well, the terrorists themselves, I think they see it as a collective effort on behalf of a collective. Because I mean, I remember the Boston Marathon bombers, when they caught that guy. If I remember correctly, they caught him inside some boat that was in somebody's backyard, and he had written in blood on the boat something like, "If you attack one of us, you attack all of us," or something to that effect. So it's like he viewed it as like an action done on behalf of Muslims everywhere.
Yeah, and it is. Ultimately it is.
Yeah.
Because they're, I mean, now we're getting off on the Muslim issue, but I mean, these people are acting like warriors. Yeah. And, in a society, once you have a specialization of a warrior class, where unlike a real, like, primitive tribal society where every male is a warrior to some extent, once you have a division of labor and you have a warrior class, most people are not really super keen on what the warriors do. They know they do what they do, and they don't. I mean, sometimes they laud it, of course, like the closer you are to that earlier tribal situation where everyone was a warrior to some extent, the more you sort of have this praising of it. But when you get far removed from it, like us, and especially then you also have Muslims in the West, yeah, no, they don't want to jump up, and not all of them anyway. In fact, most of them don't jump up and down and say, "Oh, good, we blew some people up." But these people are acting on their behalf, in that they are acting in a way to threaten and to dispossess the non-Muslim population of the land they're in. So they benefit from it. Same as our warriors go off in whatever times they have gone off to actually protect our interests of our nations, rather than just simply the interests of another nation, perhaps Israel or whatever, or financial interests, or big power interests. We wouldn't necessarily be happy about what they did all the time, all the actions they did, all the people they killed, all the villages they burned to the ground, but ultimately we would be benefiting from the power that they were exerting in the world, and then the resources and wealth which then would come back to our country because of it. So the idea that warriors act in a way that is just totally counter to the interests of the people is just silly. It's just ridiculous. Warriors are constantly acting on our behalf and securing the world for our power in the West, and yet we speak against it all the time, but they're still acting on our benefit, ultimately, to some extent anyway. It's a bit rambly again, but this idea of conformity, I mean, I think it's impossible to get away from it, but on the other hand, a certain amount of breaking of conformity is what allows us to move forward with certain amount of
well, this is something I've been trying to formulate into a concise sort of statement. It's the troubled and extraordinary and unfortunately sometimes unhealthy mind that innovates and provides intellectual material to move society forward. And this is for Europeans, but it's the sound and some might say mediocre just normal mind, which is in the majority, that sort of holds everything together. So the conformist, the larger conformist collective sort of, and I've mentioned this when we were talking about art, where you have a guy like Caravaggio who was just a maniac, and would drink away. He made a lot of money on his art, and he was an amazing artist, and and he murdered people and was on the run all the time. But he was still occasionally reined in enough to work on some of the most amazing art the world's ever seen, for some duke or whoever, so he didn't, in other words, he didn't threaten to completely undermine society the way that some artists do now. So I mean, it's the individualistic sort of extraordinary and sometimes bizarre mind is essential to Western society, but so is the rest of the people who are just normal, to keep it reined in.
Sorry, I was muted there. Yeah, I think that's well said.
Mm-hmm.
You hear me, Lumen?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. You hemmed over me.
I hemmed, like, not knowing that you were starting to speak, and I was like, "Hello, am I alone here?"
I feel like there's kind of a delay, at least on my end, on some of the different speakers. Like, it seems like there's like a 1 second delay sometimes. I don't know.
Could be.
We are conversing over thousands of miles. Excuse me.
That's true. I mean, technology allows us to do that. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yep. You guys.
Thanks,
you guys,
Whitey.
You guys. Thanks, white man. Thanks for the oppressive goddamn fiber optics.
Please watch that language.
Sorry, I was imitating an angry leftist. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah.
You know that that it's very rare that you hear me say anything vulgar.
At least live.
No.
Well, yeah. Just for those who don't know, when I send out the email inviting people to this, I said I'd like people to rein in some of the vulgarity and some of the. I mean, I think that doesn't really. If we're here to represent Jesus Christ, we shouldn't be using bad language. We should really try to tame our tongues, as I believe James says.
Yeah, I should have thought of a different way to imitate. I was trying to imitate the the angry, SJW / anarchist, whatever. I could have thought of another way to do it. My apologies.
Yeah, you are forgiven, my son.
Ian has infallibility on this.
Ian infallibility.
Well, in the Hangout, when speaking on matters of the Hangout, yes, he does.
Yes, he does. But only on only matters of doctrine and not of merely of personal.
On Hangout conduct.
Yes.
Infallible Ian.
Infallible Ian.
Well, I guess I could kick people out if I wanted to, but
you do. You have that.
I've never.
Have that.
I think I have the power to do that. I've never really tried it, but I don't want to kick any of you guys out. You're all good.
If you want to see it, just if it works, you can pretend that I've like really just stepped over the line and give it a try right now, just for the heck of it, and I'll just come back.
Okay. Well, hopefully. Well, yeah. Let's try this. It might be fun. Okay. All right. All right, Lumen. I'm gonna have to eject you from the chat.
I understand, sir.
Okay.
Ooh, the power
no,
of it.
Can you get back? Let's see if you can get back in. Okay, I think maybe when you eject somebody, that means they can't come back. I'll send them the link just to be sure.
Yeah. Otherwise, it wouldn't make sense if they could just simply keep coming in.
Yeah. I'm re-inviting you, Lumen, if you're out there.
So if you click on the arrow down, it says profile, ignore, mute, and expel, excommunicate.
It says eject is what it says.
Eject, huh?
Okay, hopefully he'll be back. because without him, let's face it, he has a lot to these podcasts.
I love my thing here. It's very, very passive. It says Lumen left the Hangout, as if he left of his own volition.
Yeah, it does say that.
Yeah. It's covering for the expeller. Oh, well, what happened to Lumen? Oh, I don't know. I guess he left.
Oh, and I'm trying to reinstate him. What's going on here? Did you like my millennial woes impression?
Where was that?
I said I'm going to have to eject you from the chat.
Oh yeah.
Oh shoot! It looks like he can't come back now. Well, darn it.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Really?
Huh. Well,
Experiment gone wrong right there.
Lumen.
That's terrible.
Well, I guess we'd have to start a new one if we want Lumen to come back, but
Oh my goodness, that's very final. You too have infallibility.
I guess I do.
Oh, he's back.
He's back.
Woo. Oh, he's back. Cool.
That was scary.
PTL. Oh my goodness.
So how was purgatory?
Well, it was like I got kicked down like a couple of flights of stairs, and you know, I was in the dark, and
you were down with the sodomites and the usurers.
Yeah, I couldn't be. There wasn't much light, but I thought I saw you leave. I was like, oh my god, where am I?
I think we're only about in the fourth hell, so it's not so bad. You're on your way up.
Okay, cool.
Who's read The Great Divorce?
C.S. Lewis?
By C.S. Lewis.
Yeah.
I haven't read it yet, but I have it.
Yeah, I have not read it either. I don't believe.
I'd love to talk to somebody.
I read one of his books a long time ago. I can't remember which one it was. It might have been Mere Christianity.
Yeah, I read that, and I read the Screw Tape Letters, which I loved. The Problem of Pain.
Oh, The Great Divorce is phenomenal. Yeah,
I'll have to read it. I do have it. I have that one book that has like all his religious books all together.
Mm-hmm.
It's big. It's good.
Oh yeah. I think I must have that too. But I've read it. Actually, a very secular friend of mine gave it to me years ago. I read it. It actually sort of was one of the causes of me returning to the church in a more significant way.
Me too. Well, when I read Mere Christianity, I mean that and My Fiance were like the two things that really kind of. I mean, I was kind of searching, you know, just sort of reaching, you know, just sort of instinctively kind of, you know, just noticing that something was missing. And yeah, that definitely, and that's kind of, that book is often suggested for that, you know, like for, you know, something like, you know, for the thinking man who's almost there, you know, so something like that. And by Jove, it worked.
Invoking pagan gods now you are?
Don't kick me out again. I'm sorry.
All right. That one I cannot
That's 2 strikes there.
I know. Let that one slide.
I know. I'm not gonna talk about my favorite social justice issue that I was, you know, considering bringing up.
Your favorite? You have a favorite?
Yeah, you know, the plight of I don't know,
Christian.
The plight of dogs who don't have enough toys or something. I don't know. It's the best I can do right now. Sorry.
Poor dogs with not enough toys.
My dog is out of toys because she's just shredded all of them, and I'm like, you know what? Yeah, I'm not going to buy any more. You know, my mother will get her toys, you know, because she's a mother, and it's like she gets everyone's dog's toys, but you know, my dog she just shreds them all up. So,
well, maybe she only does that because she's oppressed by the fact that she's not given equal standing with humans in our society.
Exactly. All right, we need to kick Ian out
treated
now.
her like a human, I mean, maybe she wouldn't do those things. It's really our fault.
There's this New England conservative talk show host named Howie Carr, and you know, like a lot of talk show hosts, he has like all these cuts from, you know, that he'll play over and over, and one of them is when something happens with pit bulls, and he has this recording of this woman whose pit bull did something to hurt someone, and the recording is the woman saying, they're just a human being. They're just like us. And you just reminded me of that.
Wow. Well, it does seem that like a lot of people are. I mean, we always hear about the phenomenon of cat ladies, or like people treating dogs as their children, and
Yeah,
like in some ways animals are becoming like human beings to a lot of people, and I remember Todd Kincannon used to troll cat ladies by referring to you and one of your cat husbands. Yeah, Todd Kincannon, he was great. He's like, which one of your cat husbands died this week, or something like that.
It's like Thomas was saying earlier, you know, like it's just that we're in this time of comfort, you know, when you don't even have to, you know, you don't think about what actually people have been indoctrinated to not think about perpetuating their family line. And it's like, you know, you're comfortable enough that you can actually, you know, have a pet and treat it like it was a child.
Do you remember?
I have some family like that.
Yeah. I remember. Do you guys remember how there are all those like syndicated judge TV shows, like The People's Court and Judge Judy, and there's like a lot of different.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different syndicated ones, I guess, too, out there. I remember there used to be this one called Judge David Young, where it was a gay judge. Do you guys remember that one?
No.
The sassy judge.
Yeah, he's justice with a snap, I think is the slogan. Yeah. I'm not joking. I wish I were making that up.
Wow.
But
I also wish you were making it up.
Court is in session and it's sassy.
Yeah, but I remember one time one of the cases had something to do with a guy who owned a dog. I don't remember all the details, but he's like, "This is your child, don't you agree?" And he's like, "No, I don't think of him as my child." It's like, then how do you think of him? He's my buddy. But like the judge was suggesting that a dog is a person's child. Like that just seemed kind of silly.
Yeah, I mean, everything is just so distorted in our societies, and you know, I mean, I love my dog. I've always had a dog. I've always loved my dogs, but it's a dog, and it's, you know, it's kind of perverse, and it's kind of when you don't appreciate, you know, if you're a dog owner, and I understand dogs extremely well. I've actually even worked with dogs, and I worked with someone who studied under like a very renowned canine ethologist, and I get dogs, and I you know, I can't imagine life without dogs. But you're not truly appreciating dogs if you're treating them like humans, because they're not humans, and that kind of it's remarkable how well they exist with us, but it's remarkable because they're not us, and that's the thing, and you can't lose track of that. You can't lose sight of that. I mean, they're different from us, and you should appreciate that. And that's what, like, one of the things that makes me invariably and consistently, that makes me happy in my life, is when I get my dog out for a hike, because I see how happy she is, and it's in a way that I can't quite understand because I'm not a dog. You know, I mean, I kind of get it. It feels good to be out and, you know, exercising, but it's, you know, when I see her, you know, she's just clearly in ecstasy, and it's, you know, it's not because she's my little fur baby, or, you know, whatever it is that people, you know, call their animals. It's something completely different. I mean, I get it. I get why people do it, but it's not healthy.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know that.
Oh, sorry.
Like,
I was just gonna.
Oh, go on, Thomas. You have something to say? Go ahead.
I was just gonna quickly say, I suppose it's just they see it as an easier way out than to actually to raise a family.
I think you're right.
I mean, not that it's easy always to have a pet. You know, they can be annoying and all that, but I don't have kids, but it must be a lot harder. And for people to just think, well, whatever, I'll take the easy way out. Just like, you know, being religious can be difficult, so take the easy way out on that. Take
Exactly.
the easy way out on everything.
Yeah, it's,
I remember,
it's
go ahead.
but it
You
just
go ahead, William.
it's infinitely less rewarding. I've had both pets and kids, and I take kids over pets.
Oh, yeah.
Any day.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean like, yeah, kids are more of a time investment because I mean, you actually have to raise
Right.
them to adulthood, whereas like animals, they last you like what, 10 years or something. I mean, maybe longer. I mean, I had a cat that lived to be 12, I think. But and you know, I love that guy, man. He was awesome. He was an awesome cat, but you know, he's an animal. They get old and they die. And I remember Michael Savage saying something like God made animals to live shorter than us because they know that they can't outlive us because they're dependent on us for their whole lives or something like that.
Yeah, if you love animals, if you love dogs like I do, it's a heartbreaking thing. Like you watch your dog go from being vastly younger than you to being vastly older than you. You know, in their time, in their
different life cycle.
Yeah, and it's it's definitely kind of heartbreaking. It hurts, but and again, this is something this is something about the European soul that's just been perverted in modernism. It's like I'm proud that Europeans treat animals better than any other people, but it's something that's kind of gone to an absurd extent and due to modernism.
Well, yeah, I mean, like you can't place animals above people because they ultimately, and as Christians, we know that God wants us to have dominion over the animals. Like they're not to be placed above us.
Yeah. I mean, dominion to me means that that we have a soul that the church has no definitive statement about whether or not animals have souls, and there was a philosopher named Douglas Hofstadter, and he put forth this theory about the size of souls, where you would never say that a bee has a bigger soul than a cat, for instance. So there's it's a different thing. Like I think that in Dominion, we understand that who we are as human beings with made in the image of God. We take precedence. At the same time, we do it in a kind and charitable way. The same way that God has dominion over us. He could crush us easily if he wanted to, but and he does chastise us. But that's where I see other people's going wrong with how they treat animals in other cultures.
We Europeans just take things too far, eh?
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah. And honestly, I mean, I think so much of it is just that when we let our societies get twisted, when we let, outer influences, in triplicate parentheses, and women, and when we let these things begin to distort our normal course of governing ourselves, yeah, things get crazy. They get distorted.
Mm-hmm. You think we're like running out of steam here? I mean, I don't want to. We have a lot of these long pauses.
I'm personally a little bit out of steam myself. I'm feeling under the weather lately, so I apologize if I'm, in any way kind of dragging things down at all.
No, I mean you're not. I wouldn't say.
I just don't think we have the frenetic people we often have on this on the Hangout. That are
what happened to Gregory? Why isn't he joining us anymore?
That jump
Yeah, what happened? I haven't seen him in a while.
Yeah.
He's working. I know he commented on the last one we did. He listened. I think he listens to them, but he just doesn't join. I don't know if maybe he's busy doing other stuff. When
he listens, and while he's listening, he's like, man, how did I ever tolerate spending time with these low energy idiots? Well, that's what he's thinking to himself.
Do I have to do my Gregory impression? You cannot place animals above humans. It's just not right. It is not biblical. I don't know.
It's the same as saying that a faggot is the same as a Christian. I'm sorry. I know I'm not supposed to say that. You know what I mean? We throw them off the top of the castle.
Hi, Gregory, if you're listening to this.
Shout out to Gregory.
I apologize.
Wish you were here. Yeah, he actually left a comment saying "Hail Lumen" on the last one we did. So he appreciates your contributions.
At least he doesn't, and he doesn't bring a bunch of National Socialism and stuff.
Yeah, there's that.
I always kind of imagine him as being more reactionary, like into an aristocratic sort of way of arranging society. Maybe like a little bit fascistic. I don't know, but I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah, I've never talked to him, but from what I've heard, it would seem like he's more of that.
He seems like a good guy. He seems like a really good guy to me. But Ian, you can't, not every hangout can be stellar. You got to remember that too.
I want to also mention, do you guys know Loretta the Prole from Twitter?
I love Loretta the Prole.
Yeah, I actually was invited her to come on, but she's feeling sick, so she had to decline. So
too bad.
If you're still listening, she said she's listening and she's enjoying it. So if you're listening now, Loretta, hope we can have you on next time, and hope you will feel better soon.
It would be great to have a woman on for a change. I mean, seriously.
We've had women on before.
Well, I should rephrase that. It would be really great for me, the few times that I do actually show up to have a woman here as well.
Well, you've been showing up the last several. You've been pretty consistent lately.
I'm trying. As long as I don't get kicked down the stairs again, I'll keep coming.
Down into the seventh hell.
Help me, Dante. Help me. I saw some guy named Muhammad getting his guts pulled out. I didn't know where I was.
He's the Mahometan.
The Mahometan.
I know that Reactionary Expat says we shouldn't use the term Islam. We should say Mahometanism, because that's really what it is. It's just a cult of personality from Muhammad.
I often do say Mohammedan. I mean,
yeah.
he goes the extra mile and uses the old Mahometan. Like that. I think that's what they used to call the Turks. I don't know, but yeah, it's true.
It's nice and traditional, and it triggers people.
That's absolutely right.
Also, call it Constantinople.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. That will trigger people too.
It's funny. They actually did call it Constantinople until like the 20th century, didn't they?
Over. Yeah, there was
which was when?
Like I want to say 1919 or 1920, something like that. There was a huge program of I guess Turkification, we could call it, because I mean so much of the Turkish, so many place names in Turkey and so much of their language wasn't really Turkish. It was Persian or Greek or what have you. So there was this real effort to kind of, I guess, purify, if you will, the country, names, language, all of that.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting that even when it was under the rule of Ottoman Empire, they still called it Constantinople.
Oh, really?
Well, isn't that? I mean, that was. Am I getting that right, Thomas?
Yeah, I think technically it was still that. Though I mean, Istanbul basically means Constantinople because if I remember correctly, it's
Yeah.
the Turkish version of the city because the Greeks just started calling Constantinople the city or the great city or something like this.
Yeah.
So like I think like
I remember.
from
I thought I
polis
read.
you get bowl, for example.
Yeah, I thought I remember reading something like Istanbul is just like a more easy way for. Excuse me. It's a more easy way for them to pronounce Constantinople, like it's derived from the word Constantinople in some way.
Yeah. It's like oh gosh, what's the term? I don't know if slang is the correct term I'm looking for.
Vulgarization, maybe?
Yeah, vulgarization of Constantinople. That version then became
Or no,
Turkified.
bastardization, maybe?
Yeah.
Well, I just like an easier way for people to say Constantinople.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then the Turkish form is Istanbul.
Istanbul was Constantinople.
Kebabization.
Kebabization. Yes, we must remove kebab.
Amen. Deus vult.
Yes, I only want souvlaki, no kebab.
We have the recipe. Remove kebab.
We have the recipe now. Yeah.
I had speaking of which, I actually had some hummus tonight, hummus in pita, and I didn't need to engage in any engage any vibrant cultural diversity to get it. Yeah.
Well, then clearly you did it
Stole
wrong.
the recipe.
Yes. There was some cultural appropriation. I didn't say that didn't happen.
Did you hear about these women in Portland?
No.
The burrito makers?
You know what? All I need to hear is women in Portland. It's like, yeah, I've heard this, even if I haven't heard it. But
If I haven't heard it, I know this story.
Yeah. So
start it. I'll finish it.
Exactly. I can finish it. Women in burritos. Okay, so it was La Raza or the white stooges for La Raza or both, just started hounding and protesting or whatever, these people for cultural appropriation, these women in their burritos, and I can't see how it ended, but
they lost their business.
Of course.
The problem is that you're absolutely right. Your story, you did finish the story. There is only one story. Basically, but they had gone down to Mexico and learned how to make tortillas by watching these Mexican women make tortillas, and then they kind of sang that too much. Like they sang the song about they're going down there and doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And so then they were making, their like food truck thing was, or I think it was more like a little cart. Their little cart food trucky thing was about handmade tortillas and then stuffed with whatever, and they put all kinds of other stuff in it. It wasn't traditional Mexican fare. They should have just called them wraps, and they shouldn't have.
Yeah.
They shouldn't have praised themselves for all the effort they went to steal or to learn from these women. I mean, you think this is a good thing, women learning from women, this very feminist kind of thing? No, because these are white girls in Portland, and of course they succumbed. Instead of just becoming the official burrito stand of the alt-right, they chose to succumb to the pressure. And
but you're not too far off from the truth there, William, because this is what's going to happen. I mean, you're either at this point tacitly, but pretty soon it will be explicitly agreeing to being wiped out, or you're a Nazi, and it's just getting closer and closer to that. You know, you're either admitting that you suck, there's nothing good about you and your people, and it's a good thing that you're being replaced, or you're a Nazi.
They should have just stayed in Mexico. Something tells me would have been just fine.
I know they could have taken advantage of these people and, you know, like made money and you know, like no one would have noticed. It's like, yeah, whatever, some more gringos coming into town and we're working for them, making decent money.
Yeah, they may have even been like, wow, look at these foreigners want to come here and learn how to cook our food in the proper way. Isn't that great?
You can't win. It doesn't matter what you do. You just can't win. And this is and you know, I'm kind of thinking of how this might relate to Christianity. You know, this is the sort of thing that I hate to say it, you know, a lot of good Catholics, you know, would be like, oh, you know, it's true. You know, they shouldn't engage in this cultural appropriation. They would agree with it. You know, the social justice component that's infected the church is it's atrocious.
Yeah.
Good story though.
Yep.
Portland. Portland, you are your own punchline, Portland.
Yes. Indeed.
I think that I'm trying to decide what the title of this episode should be. I think that William comes up with a lot of good phrases like I like traveling to the future 1 second per second. I think that's a good one. I like official burrito stand of the alt-right.
It's true though. You know, it's like these people, the more astute among the mediocre, they're going to get it. They're going to be like, you know what? I don't care if they're called Nazis or alt-right or fascists or patriarchs or whatever. They're not my enemy. They actually care. They're actually going to help me out. You know, they're going to get that. You know, it's just it is getting to that point. You know, it's getting to the point where you have to do such insanely, contorted mental gymnastics to, keep supporting the narrative that, it's going to become a lot less work to just say, yeah, these Nazis might be right. Let's start selling our burritos to the, let's call it Dickie Spence Burrito Emporium or whatever. That's the point it's going to get to.
White boy
Ricardo
raps.
Espentero.
Yeah, Ricardo
Espentero. They have to, in Spanish, they have to add an E at the beginning. Like, instead of school, it's escuela, because they can't say sk by itself. So they had to put the vowel at the beginning so that the two consonants can flow together like that.
To get a running start at the word.
Yeah, sort of.
Escuela.
Ricardo Spengler's Decline of the Western Guilt Burrito Stand.
Oh yeah, I'd be lining up right away. Like a burrito with roast beef and Yorkshire pudding inside it or something.
Yeah, there's someone on the latest Daily Show, Mike Enoch was talking about someone he knew whose sister had and this just shows how bad it's getting. She opened up like a cat cafe. It's like a cat lady cafe. Like it's a cafe, but they help cats that need to be adopted or something. So there are cats there, and it came to light that the woman that opened this business, which sounds just like a completely normie kind of paused sort of business. She got the business because some Mexican guy stopped paying his rent, and so they foreclosed on them, and she got it, and the same thing, you know, the Antifa started showing up every day and protesting, and these guys from I don't know if they're from like Identity Europe or they're from somewhere. They're alt-right guys, and they started showing up and just, you know, protecting these people were like unscrewing the lug nuts on this woman's tires and
Oh, that's right. That's right. I heard this story. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just happening everywhere.
I still haven't finished listening to the latest Daily Show, so I haven't heard that part yet.
Ah, sorry.
No, it's okay. I mean,
that was a spoiler.
I'm planning to listen to the rest of it. I'm only about halfway through it, though. Yeah, I've been so busy the last day that I haven't had time to listen to the whole thing.
Yeah, it's normies are you know, only the most hardcore, you know, is gonna stick to this narrative because it does mean death. It really does, unfortunately.
Yeah. And even then, it also just means simply inconvenience. It means it's just cost. So unless you have a reward, the reward of being granted the crown of righteousness for having you know, participated in it, what is the reason to do it other than social pressure, negative? But when that social pressure begins to wane, and it will. Yeah.
I mean, it's I remember when I years and years ago, this was a long time ago, like maybe 2005 or so, and I liked that guy, Allah Pundit. You know, nowadays he blogs for Hot Air, which was a blog that Michelle Malkin started. But I used to like him just because he was pretty quirky. You know, for the time, I thought he was pretty edgy. But one time he was talking about the increasing political correctness, you know, regarding, you know, screening Muslims, and he mentioned something like, you know, when you know, everyone in New York City is being incinerated in, you know, the furnace of Allah's righteous nuclear fire, you know, at least we can take comfort in knowing that we kept the moral high ground, and that's kind of what normies have been forced to embrace more and more. It's not, you know, it's really easy to follow this narrative when, you know, we're mostly white. You know, we have the majority, and it's, you know, there's just all these other people you can signal to, and it's becoming less tenable now. It's becoming more costly.
Yeah, that's the big shift. Yeah, I mean, if people don't behave outside of their own interest, like, this is not a thing that people do willfully, unless it's for their interest in a kind of more, I mean, we do sometimes, certainly as Christians, we do sometimes, I suppose, at least we hope we do. But in general, people are not, you know, just driven by virtue itself. Like, this is not it's not a reward in itself. It's a reward because it allows you access to employment, or it allows you access to social circles, or whatever. There's a reward that comes from it. So, yeah. So when that cost becomes apparent, like I say, yeah, I actually had this really interesting conversation with this woman who contacted me about my stuff I've been doing on fairy tales earlier, like more than a year ago. And I guess she'd been in contact with Ayla, and her and I had this conversation on my YouTube channel about Snow White and Rose Red, and one of Grimm fairy tales. And yeah, it was just this fascinating chat with this woman who she's a journalist student at Columbia. She's probably, I'm not sure how old she is, some late 30s and mid 40s. What's that?
No, I was just saying, wow. You know, I mean, the belly of the beast. You know, the cathedral. Journalism.
Yeah, I know. But
is this a new video is this a video you just put out, William?
No, this is from a year and a bit ago.
Oh,
The
well,
very
I do remember the fairy tale ones you did, but
yeah, I
like-
haven't done any recently. So she's looking at older stuff, but she was fascinated by it and genuinely well, naive about all kinds of things, but very genuinely curious. I had a hard time. I trusted her though. Like I immediately asked her. I said, "So you're not Antifa?" And she didn't even know what Antifa was.
Wait, so how did this woman contact you exactly?
She just contacted me because she had heard my interview with Ayla.
Oh, okay.
Purposeful Wife on this fairy tale. And
Was that because Ayla's been getting a lot of attention in the media? Like, I know that there are like feminist blogs going after her, and I guess the New York Post did a thing about her and saying like this Mormon housewife is actually a Nazi or something like that. Or
well, this probably would have been before that because it was like a year ago, right?
Yeah, but this conversation just happened based on Ayla's conversation. The woman just seemed genuinely interested in traditionalism and this kind of rise of, and she actually, I mean, she was very much I think on the one hand she's a good journalist that actually allows herself to immerse and become sympathetic with the subject, with the people that are her subject. So I think she was
that's remarkable these days.
She was, yeah, I know, very remarkable. I was quite smitten by her, actually. She's a very lovely woman. Yeah, we just had this long Skype chat about it, and we're sort of in conversation. Actually, I'm supposed to send her some information on human biodiversity kind of details. So I need to find a good kind of summary
Smooth
site.
William Red Pill.
That's right. Red Pill and all the honeys.
He's what I call Dr. Red Pill. Sorry. Here I go derailing otherwise.
Bring my friend you call Dr. Red Pill. There you go. Dr. Red Pill.
He's a new and better man.
Yeah.
He does everything he can, Dr. Red Pill.
Yeah.
Anyway. Yeah, so yeah, it was but it kind of showed that at least for her, at least for some people, she had a genuine curiosity and an admiration for traditionalism in this movement. She was fascinated because she's studied like domesticity and gender, the kind of areas of her study. She struck me that she probably comes from the comfort of money, and that so she's not a rabid leftist because she's trying to change the world, right? Do you know what I mean? To have access to resources. There's a there's a difference when people come from the security of wealth.
It's more
at least without the kind of threat of poverty looming. And so she had just a genuine curiosity, probably a natural inclination towards the right in a way, even though she's living in this modern world that we all live in and are compromised in various ways. It was very interesting because she was very fascinated with because she had done work on fairy tales before, early in her studies when she was younger, on gender and also fairy tales and early modern medicine, which is interesting. But yeah, so she was very interesting, but nothing shocked her. I didn't say anything that shocked her. It was quite funny. It was quite fascinating to have this conversation with this person who was open to ideas, but this would not have been a conversation anybody would have had with somebody even 18 months ago. Not very much less of a possibility. So
that's rare.
Is she researching this for like a paper she's writing, or for like an article of some sort, or what?
She's wanting it to be a thesis. Not exactly what, I'm not sure. Whether I think at Columbia she's going to run into a rude awakening when she gets there and starts saying, "I want to write on, trad wives in the alt-right." She's gonna. Who knows? Maybe they'll go for it. But I think she'll find that the cathedral comes crashing down pretty hard.
She's gonna find herself like tied to this seesaw-like apparatus, that hangs over a lake, and with surrounded by people with pitchforks and torches. And
yeah, they'd probably be okay with her writing such a thing, just so long as she was careful not to come across as being supportive of it.
Yeah, true enough. But she seemed quite taken with certain aspects of it, so, which was interesting. Anyway, so I mean, to me that's just an example of the changing of the tide. Like it's what we thought was going to be forever. I think there is certainly they're ratcheting it up, like in Canada with these basically is anti-Islamophobia laws that are most likely to be passed. I mean, they are definitely ratcheting it up, and in England the same thing, and Sweden. But in general, I think, I mean, we worry about these things, but these laws can be undone as quickly as they come in. There's nothing, especially under a common law kind of milieu like in England, like we have. I mean, these laws follow in many ways. These kinds of laws, anyway, follow the mood of the la mood de jour. La mood de jour. How do you say mood? Anyway, the mood of the day, or the zeitgeist, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if the zeitgeist change, there's no way we're going to be like, well, sorry, I know we all, no longer believe this, but on the books it says, while we're being whatever further invaded.
Yeah.
No, if we're actually resisting, we will be resisting, and the laws will reflect that resistance.
Well, I've wondered, like, if a point may come from whence. I'm just testing to see if Ian's still awake. If
that.
Yeah, I'm wondering if a time might come where the more prescient leaders might say to themselves, there may be a day of the rope looming, and maybe I might want to be seen as one of the people that tried to walk back some of these things. So I wonder if perhaps some leaders might be willing, kind of if we might reach a threshold where it starts to become a little bit easier to overturn these crazy laws.
Yeah, I think a lot of the issues that have been brought up on this show before, and by others in the right, I think a lot of it is just innate, and eventually we will things will return to more natural order of things, I suppose you could say. But I guess the biggest fear for me is how long will that take, and how much damage is going to be done, right? Like how many people have already been ruined with the whole trans agenda, for example.
Mm. Yeah, it's a little more dangerous this time around than it probably ever has been. The capacity to actually.
Yeah, and there's someplace up there, William, right, where they now, I saw this week where the state can actually take your kid away if you resist your kid's statement that they think that they should be the other gender, something like that.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's just total madness. Like, kids think all kinds of stupid stuff.
Dear Lord. Yeah.
My kid thinks he's a kitty cat. Do I have to?
Exactly.
You're going to take him away from me when I say you're not a kitty cat, or I humor for a little bit, but when it comes time to dinner time,
my kid thinks he's a Pershing. My kid thinks he's a Pershing tank, and the state took him away because I stopped feeding him petrol and 20mm shells, and
they needed him on the front lines.
Yeah.
Did you guys hear that episode of the Godcast where M. Poland did that while Rome burns segment? Did you guys Ever hear that?
Oh, I think
No.
yeah, about the train, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, I recall when I was a kid, I used to go around pretending I was a train. I guess by this logic, I should have strapped a caboose to my ass and headed west. Something like that. It was really funny. His delivery was part of what made it funny. He had this very sarcastic tone.
That's funny. Yeah, I know the cost. Like and this is what I mean by infallibility. Like these people don't think that they could bring harm by drugging, hormone, whatever you call it, hormoning these kids and doing surgery, or at least prepping them for the surgery and changing them forever. Messing with who and what they are. That this dogma that when somebody says they're something other than what their body says they are, that we must take this as a sacred statement of truth because in the past people were oppressed. I mean, this is a weird chain of leading ultimately to a profound sense of infallibility on the parts of this of the cathedral.
It's religious. It absolutely is religious. Along with global warming, and any number of other, and you use the right word, dogma. Because man requires religion of some sort, and this is their religion. Absolutely.
Yeah, without. Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, look. I'm sorry. I'm going to have to bid everyone farewell for now. I have to make something to eat and
I think we should wrap this up. I think we've been going almost 3 hours. So that's probably a good enough spot to wrap up.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Yep.
This has been a really good one. I really enjoyed this one.
Likewise. It's always good to hear from Dr. Red Pill about the official taco stand of the alt-right burrito stand.
Did you guys see Kyle?
Yeah, he's about this high. He's about yay high.
Okay, yeah.
Sorry.
We're not going to go there.
Wherever you are, Kyle. See you. See you, Kyle.
Actually,
see Kyle later.
I actually heard somebody unironically say, "Hey, have you seen Kyle lately?" All I could think of was that joke, and I was like,
You should have saluted
For
at
a
him.
second, I was like,
I think William almost earned himself a kick down the flights of stairs there.
I did. I know.
Just about.
Expulsion. I just thought for those crazy kids who didn't show up.
Got a wild hair.
Yeah. Let's do a quick wrap up here. Thank you for coming, Thomas Jones. Thank you for coming, LUE-YEE, who some of you guys missed, I guess. He was only here for the first 20 minutes or so before he went off to hang with his parents. Thanks for coming, LUE-YEE. It was good talking with you. Thank you, Lumen Saul. Thank you, William Scott. And thank you to the 12 of you still watching and listening and hanging out in the text chat. It's been good, and hope you feel better, Loretta the Pearl. We're hoping that next time you can join us, maybe. And everybody listening, have a good night. We'll see you next time.
God bless.
God bless.
See ya.